thank you for coming to this September Open Studio. It's nice to be back again doing them, having a little bit of a hiatus in the summer. And what I'm going to show you is a way that you can frame with the glass right up on the painting. And before we started recording, it is a bit of a controversy. Some people really like it, other people don't. It really depends on your personal preference. But regardless, it's a really nice technique to know how to do. And what I'd like to do is just take you through the steps. The only thing is, could someone just tell me, does this appear to be too light? Or is
No.
everything okay?
No.
It's okay.
Everything's fine.
Okay, good. Yeah, because sitting down it looked fine. Now that I'm standing up, I was a little bit concerned. Okay, so this painting, you can't tell by looking at it that it was framed any differently. Okay, in order to actually see it, you would notice if you're looking at a painting that right in there, there's absolutely no space where the spacer would go that usually holds the pastel away from the glass. And clearly there's no mat. So that's a giveaway right there that this was framed in the Passe-Partout method of the glass right up. When you flip it over onto the back, you'll see that there is a tape that goes all the way around, and I'm going to show you how that looks, because the reality of is when we're done with the one that I have for a sample, I have a little packet. I've got the painting, it's all set and ready to go. I can pop it into frames. This one here, if I decided, oh geez, I wanted a different type of frame, all I have to do is take out the breads that I have in the back, and I can just take it out, pop it right into another painting. There's a couple of tricks to it to make sure that everything's secure, so I'm going to be talking about that as we go on. And as I said, some artists use it, other artists don't. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on why I started using it, but it's really wonderful. And it all started, the idea of doing it for this is when I was getting the painting ready for Cape Cod Art Center's 8-on-8, and I wanted to put a pastel in, but nothing was framed. So I said, well, why don't I try just doing this and displaying it without a frame using this Passe-Partout. And I'm going to just show you the materials first. You need a pair of scissors, tape. Now, thing with tape is it should be acid-free or pH-neutral tape. Okay, so what happens is some tapes, if you go on the inside, and I'm going to tip this so that you can see the inside, it actually will say that this is pH-neutral tape. Okay, sometimes it'll say acid-free. pH-neutral seems to be in all the descriptions because I was looking up tapes so I could tell you where you could get it, because I tend to buy things in bulk, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't passing you off in the wrong direction. Now, this one here just says Blick tape, but if you go to Dick Blick's website, you put in pH-neutral tape, up will come a sampling of different tapes that you can, I wrote down some information here. Sometimes it'll say archival, but like I said, it's really page neutral. This one doesn't say it on the inside though, okay? Which kind of gave me a little bit of a, geez, did I buy the wrong stuff? But when I got online, it actually says it in the description. So although this one does say it on the inside, it's the description on the website or on the packaging if you're buying it in a store. And besides Dick Blick, you can buy pH-neutral tape at Michael's. What I will say is, one, I've never used it, and two, it was extremely expensive. It was at least 3 times the price of Dick Blick's tape. But again, I use the black. You can get it in white, but what you're looking for is that term pH-neutral or archival. I tend to use either 3/4 of an inch tape or 1 inch tape. These are both 3/4. So clearly I haven't bought 1 inch in a while, because this is all I have about 5 different rolls of this. Okay, so we've got scissors, we've got tape. You're gonna need some sort of backing. This is the other thing you want to make sure that it actually either that says something about pH neutral or archival. A lot of your foam cores are all right. Gator board is not necessarily always acid free. What you do not want to use is cardboard. Okay, cardboard often has different chemicals in it, and you do not want that leaching through into your painting. And you've all seen that, you know, like you have like an old sketchbook, and you know, sometimes you can see that leaching of its, you know, the discoloration. So you want something that's sturdy. I like the foam core because it's lightweight, but it's sturdy, and that it's easy to cut. Gator board, like I said, you have to check it, but the ones that I know that I was ordering that don't necessarily say they're archival, I have to treat them with gesso before I use them, and that does help with the archival quality. If you're not worried about archivalness, that's quite all right, but you definitely don't want to use cardboard. Matte board will work, but what I would caution with matte board is that what you want to do is if your matte board is too thin, of course, oh, well, wait a second, I wonder if I have a piece over at the side. No, I don't. I didn't think to bring it out. You want something that is not going to warp over time. So this is the advantage of something that's just a little bit thicker. My guess is that is probably 1/8 of an inch. It's not super thick. Foam core you can get in different thicknesses also. So if you're, you know, if you're doing something large and you want to have it sturdy, you might want to get a larger one. The other thing, and I left this in its packaging so you can see how it arrives. Well, this is part of the packaging. It comes with a lot of protective stuff around it. I use the glass, and it's water white AR70, which is very similar to museum glass, but it is not as pricey, but it does reduce the glare so that when your painting is framed and hanging, you don't have that glare or that feedback from an image reflecting.
Can I ask a question? Am I able to?
Yes.
Is it something that you get from Dick Blick as well, or do you have a special place you order your glass?
No, I get mine from a place called Frame Destinations, and they are in Texas, and their prices are very reasonable, and they frequently have you know, 20% off or free shipping. So it's well worth you know, checking them out. I've been ordering from them for quite a while now. I have never had any glass come. Oh wow, I ordered 2. I didn't realize that. I've never had a glass come broken, chipped, cracked, or anything. I don't get my frames from there because I'm a little fussy about what frames I have. So I don't get my frames from there, but they, for all I know, they could be nice. I've had some inexpensive ones that I ordered, and they were nice quality. It just wasn't a heavy wood. It was a soft wood, more similar to balsa wood. So those are your main ingredients for doing this. So I'm going to just slip this to the side so you know what you need. Oh, no, what am I talking about? I do have a couple other things. Okay, you want a microfiber cloth, and I better move this because I could picture knocking that. Microfiber cloth for cleaning. And what I use is alcohol, and I spritz the glass. So I'm going to show, well, I spritz this, and then I wipe the glass. So you'll see that when I get to that point. The framing stuff, I'm going to show you that later because I'm not going to actually go through actually putting a frame together, but I will show you how it works. Some people, I find these a little awkward to wear, but these are like musician's glass cleaning gloves. I can't remember. Somebody gave them to me, and they were just a little bit too big, and I found them like awkward to hold. But if you're afraid of getting your fingerprints on the glass, you can buy these gloves. And I apologize for not knowing the exact name, but for some reason I think musicians might wear them. I don't know, or framers, not really sure about that, but that's something that there's something for you guys to explore. But the microfiber and the rubbing alcohol. So the first thing that we're going to do, okay, this is, oh, I did this painting of Zoe a while ago when I was doing one of those challenges to do a painting a day. So my family were very good and sat still for me, and I painted everybody. So anyway, what you are going to do, and I've pre-cut it because you don't actually need to watch me cut mat board. Foam core board. You're going to cut this the exact same size. I tend to do things in more standard sizes, but this is actually an 8x7. So this is a little bit unusual for me because I do paint, 8x10, 9x12, so on, but I do break that habit every once in a while. So first thing we're going to do is you need to secure your painting to the backing board. Everything needs to be secure. Okay, so that's number one. No matter what you take away from this, is just remember you are making a secure packet. And in order for that packet to be secure, you need to make sure that you have the painting secured to the backing and then the glass secured to the packet that you've started to make. And I wish I had thought to cut this tape ahead of time. So while I'm cutting some tape, I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions or if you've tried this before or seen this before. Right, somebody start to say something.
Betsy,
Yeah,
Phyllis, what was the name of the glass again?
it's called Water White AR70.
Okay.
And they do an AR 90 or 99, something like that. But truthfully, for the work that I do, I don't really need to have it to spend that extra money. I mean, this costs more than regular glass, but it's not so unaffordable that you can't frame at will.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to make a hinge. So I have 2 pieces of tape. Okay, I'm going to flip one over. And I'm going to slightly overlap them so I wind up with a hinge. You can see this side's sticky facing up, that side's sticky facing down. I'm going to start with the top, and I usually flip it around so that I don't have the sticky stuff showing if the 2 pieces of tape were not the same size. I'm going to line this up so that it's, and I've already checked to make sure that my board, I would recommend that if you don't have it the exact size, this one's slightly smaller. I'll do that again. Slightly smaller is better than slightly larger. If you cut this and it's a little too small, that's okay. If it's a little too large, I would trim it. So I guess the bottom line is you want it to be either the exact same size or you want it to be slightly smaller. The reason I say that is you don't want a ridge. Yes, and I heard somebody else.
It's Mary Jane. Did you spray this or is it not?
Mary Jane, I was supposed to mention that. I did spray that. Okay. I sprayed it with Lasco fixative. There's a couple of ones that I use. The one that I was using for a while has become hard to get. So this was recommended, I believe it was by Jean Rosier Smith, that she uses this one. I only use a fixative that I've tested or other people have tested, and it does not make this any darker. Some fixatives will make your pastel darker. Do not use them. The workable part of a fixative, if it makes it darker, you're going back in. That's what workable means. You're going to go back in. You're bringing the tooth up and then you're working on it again. So this one here, absolutely end product, does not make things darker. Someone gave me this one, Sennelier, and they said this one does not make it darker. But I really haven't used that much, but I'm recommending it because a good source has said it does not make your pastel go darker.
I have used that one recently and so far I have no darkening.
Oh, great, perfect. There we go. Thank you, Karen. That's it. It helps really to get recommendations from other people so that you know when you're not messing around trying to reinvent the wheel. Now,
It would
I've
be
done-
helpful, Betsy, if in one of these sessions you sprayed something so we can see, like, is it kind of like you're killing a hornet and you're dosing half the
Yeah,
can on it?
that's
Probably
right,
not.
right.
That's me. Next thing you know, you're like, oh, shoot, open the windows.
yeah, that would be
kinda
much
like
easier.
just-
Yeah, that'd be easier to do in real life. I'll tell you why.
Okay,
Because
you can't
this is
see
what
it.
I do. No, I go outside.
okay.
These things
Oh.
have a noxious odor. So
Okay.
imagine what I'm doing is I'm taking this painting, I'm putting it on the porch floor. Then I'm holding this at my arm's length, not arm's length from the painting, but as my arm goes down, I'm not like bending my arm, I'm not bending over. I'm standing up straight. And what I'm doing is from the length of just the length of my arm, and I'm misting it. I'm going like this.
Okay.
And then I'm going like this. And I'm doing that from probably a good 2.5 to 3 feet from the painting. So it's really a mist. So it's just
Okay.
landing on it. I don't actually fix a lot of my paintings, but I must admit I do fix the ones that I use this method of framing with, because I just want to reduce the amount. I just want to reduce the amount of dust that there's going to be. And you'll see what I mean by that. Let me just get one more going here. So,
Betsy,
yep.
it's Ramona. When you were talking about the tape, I did buy some at Michael's and
Yeah.
I'm having trouble with it pulling away. Like I tried, I have a piece that I'm working on and I taped it with the joints to the foam core.
Yep.
And the next day I come down and it's laying face down on the bench. 'Cause those
Okay.
let loose. So I think I'm
Yeah.
gonna go buy the more expensive stuff or the stuff from Blick.
Well, one of the things that you want to think of is the some tapes are designed to be refixed, which means you can move it. You can put it down, then you can take the tape off and move it to another spot. These tapes that I'm using, once they're on and you want to take them off, it's going in the trash. These guys are not going to come off unless I actually pull them off. So see what I'm doing here? Okay, I'm coming around. I've got 3 on this side and putting another one. I'll slip that in right there. I'll pull it. So yeah, so always look at your tape to make sure that it doesn't say that it is, what word would they use? Would they say refix, repositioning? Because some tapes you can actually do this.
I think it is repositioning.
Okay, so there you go. That is tricky. Okay, because this is, I'm gonna have to really pull this off, and truthfully, if it stays on there too long, you can see it's just a little bit smaller than the actual painting. The top part is even, the bottom, it's just a little bit, the board's a little bit smaller. So I've done the top and the bottom, and you can do this multiple different ways. This is just, I tend to make sure the top and the bottom are secure. And I hold it, I slide, let me flip this over. I slide a large one right in the middle. So I'm gonna lift that up just a little bit. I suppose it really, no matter how you put your tape on, I mean, it's like, this isn't, a one-shot deal. You can put the tape any way you want, but you just want to make sure that there's enough around so that your painting is not going to move on that backing board there. And I guess you could use a, those, what are they called? MDF boards. If you wanted to, you could use a variety of different things. I mean, I'm always thinking of the weight too. I don't want to have a frame that is too heavy. Okay, let's get Oh, I did that side already. Oh, no, this side right there. So I'm just gonna lift that up slightly. Slide that in. Line it up, push it down. Slide it around. Okay, so what happens is I've got this taped all over. Now you could go in there and you could put more tape if you wanted. If you were worried about your corners or something, you can add a little bit more tape, but you'll see why. My concern is making sure this is not going to move on that. And to me, that feels like it's enough. I do not have to have tape all over the place. Okay, we're gonna put that to the side.
Betsy, another question.
Yeah.
Could one use the archival double stick tape that comes like on a roll where you just drag it across the back?
Yeah, I would assume you could do that. You know, the only thing I'd say is if you're gonna do that, you're gonna have to flip your painting upside down. So whatever surface you put that painting on, you wanna make sure that you're not gonna leave your painting behind when you flip it
Put
back.
on the foam board, but you'd still have to push your painting down on.
Mhm.
Oh, you could, of course, yes, that would make sense, definitely. Yes, I would say that would, you know, I mean, if you're, you know, the only pitfall I can see to that, which may not really even be a pitfall, is if you don't line it up right, you have to pick it up and take it off again. But, you know, that's the only thing I can think of. The smaller ones are definitely, I would start with smaller ones. And, yeah, the double-sided work, again, just check the adhesive, because you don't want any adhesive that's going to eat away or leach into the actual painting surface. So which is why, you know, we're going for tape that has that pH neutral to it. Okay, so yeah, whatever works for you is fine. Okay, for glass, this has got rubbing alcohol in it. I've just always used it. It was recommended ages ago and I find it works out really well. This place does a marvelous job of sending clean glass. So occasionally I get glass that has fingerprints on it, but more often than not, it is pretty darn clean. So I'm just taking it and I'm looking through it and I can see a couple of spots. So I am going to clean it. I'm going to put it right back down on the surface. I know that's clean, or I could put it down on here. You just want to make sure it's a clean surface so you're not picking up stuff. Spray your rag, well, not rag, your microfiber. Circular motion. Start in the center and I work up. Start in the center, work up. Same sort of thing. So every time I do this, I'm going to the center, I'm going out to the edges. Go around. This is where some people like to wear the gloves. I don't know, maybe I've been doing it long enough. I'm gonna, oh, well, whatever was there is not there anymore. I'm gonna flip it over. Again, very carefully. Give this another spritz. Whoops. And go on. And I think somebody has talking going on in the background, so just be careful. If you're not asking a question, just mute yourself. Okay. I keep this one that I use for glass in a plastic bag so it doesn't pick up. I'm not the neatest person on the face of the earth, but there are a few things that I think I'm very proud of. And one of them is I keep my microfiber really nice and clean in the bag. Okay, so let's give that a double check. Okay, just move it around. Oops, I just see one little glitch right there. Touch it with my finger. Okay, it's not on that side. I'm just gonna go there. Gonna flip it over. It's now down here. A lot of times you can't see what's on the glass when it's lying flat. That's why you always want to get in there. Okay, now I'm going to go like this because I'm seeing something right here. Hold it up, circular motion, circular motion. A framer had told me that once and it just kind of stuck with me to use.
Betsy, a question?
Yeah.
It's Lori. You said this is not conservator or museum glass, but it does reduce the glare. Does it also protect the pastel?
Yes, yes, it does. It's between conservation clear and museum.
Ah, okay.
And truthfully, it's closer to museum. I believe, if I remember correctly, is that museum glass, one side is coated, which was always like a nightmare. I don't know how many of you have framed your own with museum glass. You could, if there was any, that's why I'm so careful with these. If there was any speck of anything and I wiped it on the museum's side, I would wind up potentially having a scratch, which was a real pain in the neck. This one, it's the interior that has the protection for the UV and for the glare. So both sides of the glass can be treated the same. The museum glass, a framer told me this trick too. You take, let's see if I've got it right here. If I didn't need it, so I didn't bring it in. So you take your X-Acto knife and you make a little mark in the corner. And if it just glides, it's the glass side. And if it makes a mark, it's the museum glass side. That's the easiest way to remember, because you can't tell by looking. But if you make a little mark in the corner, if it doesn't make a mark, regular glass. If it does make a mark, it's the museum. But this AR-70, it's the same on both sides. So I don't have to worry about the one side being extra cautious with.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a dumb question. Which side goes down?
Okay, the side, good question. The side that is actually for this does not make any difference because it's in the center. For museum glass, you put the museum side down. Now, of course, it's not a dumb question, but of course it's going to make sense as soon as I say it. Because remember I said museum glass will scratch easily. You don't want it on the outside. Because on the outside, if someone cleans it wrong, they're going to scratch it. If the museum glass, the side with the protection on it, goes against the painting. Okay, so this I've double checked it a few times, looking good. So this is the trickiest part, and this is where I would say absolutely practice on small ones first. Okay, this is nice and secure. I've sprayed it, it's all set, exact same size. I'm going to the farthest corner from me and I'm lying it down. And I'm checking everything. It's just floating over the top. It's down. Okay, now I'm going to slide this over to the side. See the way I have it hanging over the edge? Because remember, we do not want that to move. If I picked it up now, I don't want to have to clean it again. But if I picked it up now, there could be little traces of the pastel there. But if I don't pick it up, it will remain absolutely fine. It's not going to smear. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to position it. I usually do about 1/8 of an inch coming in, taking it. This is a fingernail. I'm pushing it down. Of course, this is going to depend on how thick your rabbit. Is it the rabbit? Well, the edge that hangs over. I think the rabbit is how deep it is. So most of them have between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch. So that'd be fine. Now, without moving it, I am lifting up, pressing, and I'm pressing it on the back. Okay, so that's going to keep this side stable. Doesn't matter if I get fingerprints on this now, because guess what? I'm going to clean it when I'm done again anyway, okay? Because I was cleaning it really to make sure that the part that's underneath doesn't have any specks. It's so easy to get little tiny little fibers that just show up out of nowhere. Got to very easy, quickly, but carefully. Well, I shouldn't say quickly. You don't have to do it quickly. Move it over here. Check it. Yep. Oh, I already have one. Do the same thing on this side. I usually do it in the middle. Now, once you start doing it, it's and you get used to it. I'm showing you this because this helps, but you may get to the point where you don't actually need to do these sides again. Pushing really hard here. pushing down here. And I'm flipping it over. So we could pretend this was secure, but it's actually not secure enough, okay? This is secure enough where now I can move it around and do things and not worry about the glass actually moving on the painting. So I'm gonna keep it hanging over the edge. And I do the same side. Oops. Oh, wait a second. I have to do this. I'm like such a rote person. I'm doing it on the wrong side of my body. I never do it on this side. Yep, that's down. It's funny. It looked like it was raising and it was just a little bit of a little over. Oh, you can't see that. Let me move my hand on this side. Little bit of an overlap. See that? Well, maybe you can't. But anyway, the tape is not coming to the end because of the dark down here. You can't see it. It's going a little bit past that. Okay, I already have that middle part that identified right about that 1/8 of an inch. I'm gonna take, I cut it not right up to the edge. So let me move it now so you can see it. So it's a little bit hanging over here, a little bit hanging over there. Hold it on its side. Pressing down. And really push that. I'm pushing so there's no gap there. I'm pushing it, make sure that that is nice and tight. I'm going around the edges, going around the edges. There we go. Now, when I did the one for Cape Cod Art Center, I really tried to make sure that this was nice and even around the edge. This is going in a frame, so you don't have to kill yourself trying to make sure this is exactly an 1/8 of an inch. It's going in a frame. No one's going to see how accurate you are. Okay. Going to come in here. Going to make, okay, let me come up this way. Okay, see the way there's like this little edge showing up? Because remember, it's a little bit longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right into that. Right there. And I'm going to fold that down and I'm going to fold this over so that I have, that's a very messy corner, Betsy. Very messy. Jeez, I can fix that when I do the next corner, but that's really messy. Okay, so we're gonna pretend I did a better job with that. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing with the other side. And I'm going to do that. There's my center. Doing that centerpiece really helps a lot because then you know how far you can again, push down really hard with the side of my fingernail. Ooh, look at that. Reline it. It was too shallow. You don't want to have it too shallow or the tape is not going to have anything to stick to. And the first one I did, it was way too shallow. Press down hard, come around, flip it on the top, come around, and I'll get those guys right. And then I'm just going to do the other. So I'm doing all 4 sides like this. And remember, we want to know where that center is. So I'm going to go like this, 2 little pieces. I feel like I can pick it up now. When I didn't have the 2 sides attached, I really was using the this to keep everything stable. It's not really going to move anywhere. So somewhere right smack in the middle, I'm just going to roughly lay that out. So it's roughly 1/8 of an inch. You start pushing towards a 1/4 of an inch and your black tape may show. Now, I didn't mention this, but it doesn't have to be black. It's black because the boards that I buy for painting are all black because I do a lot of painting outside. So I like having the black so it doesn't reflect all that light back at me, especially like a day like today. The blackboard was wonderful. I didn't have all that light coming back at my face. Okay, I can see right where that is. I'm going to give a switch again so you can see that. Okay, I'm going to give it a little bit longer overlap here because I have to fix up those corners that I had. Double check. Yep, that's all right. Double check, that's all right. I was double checking to make sure I hadn't gone too close to the edge of the glass. I wanted to keep it that 1/8 of an inch there. Spread it down, come back. Press down. Starts to get, sometimes it can get a little thick up at the top there. But most frames, what they do, let's say you get an 8x10, you're not getting a size that's exactly 8x10. It's a little bigger than an 8x10. So you know, if you're ever not sure, measure the inside of your frame first. And I'm going to try to.
Betsy, could you address, you must paint a little beyond the margins of what would be the ref of your, what you've chosen as a reference, so that in case the frame's a little big or something, you're not like looking at paper or sloppy
Correct.
edges.
Correct. I paint right past the, I go right up to the edge. Let me get one here. This one's like not done, but nearly done. Some of you will remember this. Some of these things kind of like, I took a little break. You can see, I painted right up to the edge. But what I've done is I have made sure that in my mind's eye here, that I don't have anything that's important on the last 1/4 inch, okay? But I do, I just paint right up to the edge, and that way I can guarantee that when I do this method, and that was a really good question, because if you leave borders, you have to, let's say you use a color fix that has the white border around it, that pastel paper, you would have to check to make sure that the white border isn't, you'd have to make sure that the white border is smaller than this
You
area
could cut
here.
yeah, you could
Or
cut the
you-
border
or you
off, but
Cut it
yeah.
off, yeah, because it's actually the painting that's on color fix. The edge is in addition, the inside where you're painting on, that's 9x12. The actual painting is probably a 1/4 inch on either side. So if you're framing right up, you would
Yeah.
cut it. But let's say for some reason you had a paper that did have a border, that was a 9x12. What you could do is just double check to make sure the border's not going to show, because you don't want the border to show and you don't want the tape to show.
And if you're, when do you decide when to actually paint on a board that already has the paper affixed to it, or do you never, because you know how to do your own mounting paper to a board? Like UArt sells boards, and the 4mm has the border on it, like the color fix. The 8 doesn't, and you know, one needs a matte cutter, the other one you could probably cut with an X-Acto knife. But I'm just curious if you ever paint on a board or you don't.
I trim them. When I paint on UArt that's mounted, which I don't do a lot, but I have some, so I do. I'm not going to waste a piece of paper I have. So I do cut it if there's a border, so that I get rid of that border. And I do it before I paint, because I don't want to be messing around trying to put down, you know, I use a stainless steel, it's a 4-foot measuring tool. And I use that with an X-Acto knife, and I don't want it slipping on the painting. So I usually trim things before I start painting.
I think
And I say
framing one of those.
usually,
I think
you know.
framing's one of those things. There's a fair number of lessons learned, right, over the years, and
Yeah,
you can really shoot yourself hard in the foot. I guess that's why I've been cautious and not doing it, because of course there's a learning curve, and I feel like I have enough learning curves in life. But I always attend the webinars on them, but I haven't been bold enough to try it yet.
yeah. I would suggest the I mean, the thing of it is the mounted board. The only thing that would be different if I was using a piece of mounted paper, I just wouldn't have had to mount it to the board because it's already mounted. So I could just go right into putting the glass on top. What I'm doing here is I'm getting these corners, so I've already cut them. You can see that. Whoops.
Yeah.
This is always like a real, like, which direction do I move this? But anyway, it hung over. So what I'm doing is I'm folding this side over this way. And then I'm folding this one over this way so that it seals that corner. Now, I was really careful when I did it for the Cape Cod Art Center, but truthfully, like I said, this, as long as it's sealed, I'm not really worried about it being perfect. Let's get the last one on here. It's a little bit lined up, go over, make sure I get that center. Like I said, key things to remember is the painting is totally secured. That little center tape reminds me where that 1/8 of an inch is. A little extra on the sides. Oh, my scissors are acting up. Ugh.
Hmm.
Okay, let me move this over here. It's probably the angle I'm trying to do this on. I have to do everything so I'm facing the camera so you guys can see. Side of my finger, press it down. Same thing, come around the edge, press it down, fold it over. And remember, every time I've done this is to ensure that there's no wiggle room. You want no wiggle room at all, because you do not want this glass moving. And I'm going to give a couple of examples when I stop doing this so that I can talk about it. Fold that one in, this one over. Nice little corner.
Betsy, you're
Yeah.
sealing the corners. Is that to prevent the wiggle room or to seal it from moisture?
It's sealing it now, and that's a good question about moisture, and that's what some people get a little bit concerned about, that if moisture gets in there, it's going to ruin the painting. A couple of different ways. You could wind up having the wetness absorb the painting. You could have any damp appear, and you could have pockets. You ever see that with paintings where there's like little pockets? But in order to have any condensation, you need to have air. And what have I just done?
You've sealed it from air.
I've sealed it from air, and I've pressed it from air. I've made sure that there's no air in there. If I was doing a larger one, and I had to do it based on the size I have for the camera, to tell you the truth, and it would have been a pain in the neck to do it. I would take, I've got another piece of card underneath here. I would take another board. Where is that other board? Oh, there it is. Let me just slide this out. I would take another board. I would lie it on top before I taped it, and I would press down for a larger board, just to make sure before I did all that extra taping, not the little corners, the sides to hold it. If I was doing a larger one, I wouldn't have just done here and there. I would have done here and here and here and here. I would have done more taping. So you have to think of it in terms of the larger scale you go, you want to give yourself enough points so that the glass is not going to move. The smaller pieces, you know, the two on the side, it's not going to move. This is a small area that I'm working with. So I've now created something. There's no air in there. I've created corners. And then what happens is here's the frame. Okay, this is a silver frame. This is for my daughter. She wanted a silver frame. Okay, and it's going to go right in there. It's going to fit. Okay, and you can, unless you look in the corners, you cannot tell that it's got the tape. And that's where that 1/4 of an inch, that 1/8 of an inch went, because I don't want the tape to appear. Now, some of you may say, oh, how do you attach it? So let me just pop that out for a second. I'm not going to actually do all that because that could become laborious. Next step I do, just because most of the time I like the back to look nice and neat. I then come, and I say most of the time, there are some times that
That's really sealing it.
It's really silly. This is not going anywhere. And you have to consider the fact too, that by the time I put it in that frame and this is then secured in the frame with either points or brads, it's pushed right up to the edge. So it's just no wiggle room. They just keep thinking you want to have no ability for that painting to move at all. Now, when people buy a painting without a frame, I do this for them if they want me to. If they don't want me to do this with glass, then they can bring it someplace, because some people want matte, and some people aren't crazy about this method. But this lovely little packet I have. Okay, look at that. Isn't that great?
Really nice.
Okay, then I can put my little label on the back, which I just get from Vistaprint, and it's I think it doesn't say label for painting. I think it's labels for anything. Just go to their labels section, and then I just it's, where's the one that I had out? Oh, here. There. I'm just gonna get a whole load of them from Vistaprint. You can put all your information right on it, and then I always leave a photograph of me painting, and then the title. I leave a space to write the title. And, it says what kind of glass. So this one was museum glass, because I'm still working through all the labels. So just to be honest, I usually write underneath it AR70, so that people are aware that it is still considered a museum type of glass. So I don't actually cross out the word museum. So there you go. Isn't that great? Couple like caveats to this.
Fantastic.
I know. Is that so? Next time. This would have been good to do a month ago. I had multiple people say, "Oh my gosh, I wish I'd seen this. I could have done it."
Yes, I agree.
Cut art, and so it works out great. So what I would suggest, how some of my paintings I put like a gesso down, and then I'm putting on the pumice, and it's very textural and it's uneven. I really don't do this if there's a lot of texture. And the reason why is what I'm thinking of is pressure points. So I can't lie it flat, because, there's dips and grooves where I've got a stream of gesso, or I went into it with a cross hatching with some tool or something. And I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to get it totally sealed. But I'm also worried about if anyone pressed on it, or if there was anything that leaned up against it. If it's on a pressure point where, let's say, there's a strip of gesso right there that's raised, and they press in the area on either side of it, it could crack. So I don't think the glass is probably that fragile, but I just go on the very cautious side that this is done with surfaces that are either totally flat surface. I mean, the amount of pastel we put on might look thick, but it's not that thick. Or it has a very slight raises of any texture that's in there. Like the one that I did that I used collage materials. Okay, it's slightly raised, but it's collage materials. It's not like a heavy, thick paste like gesso that's running through it for a ridge. So you take that. So I'm going to just show you a couple things. I'm not going to do the frame, but I'm just going to show you. Okay, that's going to go in here. Now, what I typically use is I have this tool here. Oh my gosh, I don't really remember what it's called. I'm going to have to put it when you get the video. I've been using this for years, and this is the one where you use brads, small brads. And you hold it, you put the brad up. Oops, I gotta slide it forward. Okay, so the brad's there. You take this, you push it up, and then you squeeze. You really can't see. I'm gonna knock the glass off. Let me move farther up again. Okay, there's the brad. We're gonna pretend I haven't put it together. This thing moves back and forth. You push it up against the edge of the frame, hold it with your thumb, hold that with your finger, and then this trigger, you just pull it, and it actually pushes the brad into the wood.
Oh, how cool.
It's very cool, and you know, a lot of pastels do use it. This type of frame is great. I use some frames that are thicker width here. This thing only goes so far wide. So truthfully, sometimes that's not even wide enough. So I use, here it is, a point driver. Okay, and this is more standard that's used. Can't show you how it works because I was in the middle of framing a painting that needed to be shipped yesterday and I didn't have any more points. So someone did come to my rescue and did help me finish this. But on a wider frame where this doesn't fit, because you need enough room for the brad and you need enough room to squeeze, otherwise you're not able to actually push the nail in. This here, you hold it right up against the wood and you just, let's see, can you see this trigger right here? Then you just pull this trigger. I tend to do it on a slight slant if I've got not enough depth, but I have enough depth there so I can push it up flat. And I pull the trigger and a point is driven right in there. And that's typically what you see in the back of paintings that are framed is the point driver. That's more common than the other one I showed you. I do use the flexi points because the flexi point mean if, let's say something happened and I needed to take the painting out, or if it was a painting that I had on the market for a while and hadn't sold, and I think, well, I might as well use the frame for something else. The flexi points, I can just pull them up and take it out. The other points that they have, you'd have to use pliers and pull it out, which is what you need to do with this. In order to get these there, you need a pair of pliers and you pull it out and then you can swap out the frame. I'm all for swapping out frames because I don't need to have everything framed all the time. So there we go. Trying to think. All my little reminders have been used that are here. So now I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to switch it so I can see you guys.
Okay.
Betsy, where do you get your frames from?
Oh, I get my frames from the King of Frame, and he's in California. And we're not going to look at the mess behind me. But anyway, I've already admitted I'm not the neatest person. But anyway, I get it from King of Frame, and he's in California, Randy Higbee. He also does art shows. Oh gosh, which one is it? Is it Smarter Entry? Oh, I can't remember which one. That he also manages one of the major online juried art shows. You know, like there's online juried shows, Smarter Entry. It's not Smarter Entry. I can't remember some of the names of the other ones. Cafe. There's a variety of them out there on entering shows. And and it's great. I like his selection of frames. There's and I do tend to keep, I have about 3 different frames that I like, and they come in both like the silver or the black. I don't really use gold frames anymore. I only use some that have like a little bit of the gold edging. And then there's one that Randy, King of Frame has that I really like that I don't think I've seen anyplace else. And it's kind of hard to describe. So it's a very flat frame, but it has a warm gray, neutral appearance to it. It's very, it's a really, really nice frame. It was the painting that was in the For Pastels Only show in July. That one was framed with that. And then there's one over at Couture Center for the Arts that was framed in one of those frames. Those are very good. But there's a lot of different frame stores around. I do get frames from Woodruff's too when I need something that's cut a specialty size, or if I have run out of time to order online. And you know, they do a terrific job framing too. So and you know, whether you go there to have them do the whole thing or if you're, you know, ordering a frame. But any other questions?
What kind of brads do you use and what size?
Okay, good question. Let's have my little, let me move this here. Okay, the brads will vary, so this is about a 3/4 inch brad, but I will use them as small as a 1/2 inch. It just depends on the width of the frame. These frames have a wide area, so you know, the 3/4 work out well. I also use, let me sit down again, because I can hold these up. I don't need to stand there. Okay, I also use the wire that actually has a protective coating on it. So you don't have that real rough edge of the uncoated wire, framer's wire, which is very nice.
I noticed you have those nice hooks too,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, these are great. I bought these in bulk. I do not remember where. You know, most of the time I just, I think I had like 100 of them, 200 of them, something like that.
Do those-
So-
is
and
that-
then these are just the one, but for the larger paintings, they sell them with the two, you kind of can't
They're
see.
called-
Maybe if
they're
I go
called
like,
Hooks,
what are they called?
D-hooks. You can even get them in Home Depot.
Okay.
D-rings. There we go. So you can see sometimes it's one, for larger paintings, you would want two, because it's really the weight of the painting. And also you want to be careful if it's a really heavy one, you don't want this part here to start moving, because it could, if this is not capable of holding the weight of a heavier painting, let's say you did do something that had a lot of materials on it, it was heavy, maybe you did it on a board, ampersand board or an MDF board or something like that, you want to make sure that this weight is correct. It's the same with your wires. You want to make sure that, you know, you have the correct weight so that it's something doesn't wind up sagging.
I have a question. Betsy, it's Lori.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, I'm looking at working on a large, several large pastel paintings for a final capstone project for school.
Okay.
And what I really love about this session, thank you so much for doing it, is all I could think of is I cannot do a pastel and not have people's hands all over it. I'm gonna have to switch to acrylic. You know, but I don't want to switch to acrylic. I love pastel.
Yes.
So this tells me that it's like, this is perfect timing for me as far as I'm concerned. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, good.
But I'm looking at what it would take to do a larger painting, pastel painting, using this type of framing. Not necessarily using a wide frame around it. Maybe just something thin and metallic. Is
Right,
this
yeah, just
adaptable
like
to
little
this?
1 inches.
Yeah.
Oh, when you say large, what are you thinking of for large? Which large in my head and your head might be two different things. So what size are you thinking of?
About yay big.
Like,
About yay big. Yeah. I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do it in sections. Okay.
mhm.
I really do want to end up with something this big. So I'm looking at doing something in sections, but larger sections.
Okay, so is this like gonna be like a triptych where you've got 3 paintings that are next to one another and they're just framed separately? Or are you talking about one big long panel? So because what happens when you have a big long panel, like the largest I've done is an 18 by 24, but I have ambitions to do larger than that. Framing starts to change because what it is you need to make sure that the frame, depending on the materials you've used, including your backing, the materials that are in the painting, and the glass,
Right.
the weight starts to increase exponentially the larger you go. So then you have to, truthfully, I would seek advice from a framer because you might have to have crossbars if you go really large. You want the weights because you don't want where's the frame? You don't want this to start separating because the weight of everything is, you know, weakening those corners.
Right.
So I know 18 by 24s, you know, really that's reasonable. I haven't had any problems doing them that size, even when I've used the gator board. Go
Well, like
larger than that, I would ask a framer.
Yeah, well, like for instance, I was thinking for example, the 18 by 24. a
Mhm.
series of 18x24s, you know?
Yeah.
That would be doable. Would that need the crossbars?
No, no. I mean, I would say if you, and I've done 18x24s on the Gator board with gesso, which does add weight to it. The Gator board is not as heavy as MDF boards or what's the other word people use for the boards? I can't think of it, but it's part of like a particle board. Well,
Right.
not really particle board. I don't know.
Okay.
But again, it's the weight of everything. And if you're just using pastel and you're not using a lot, you're not doing like a multimedia that's putting weight on it. Like as soon as I start adding gesso, I'm
Right.
putting weight. If I'm, doing a painting like that, like I said, 18x24, I've been absolutely fine.
Okay.
And I have bought a good frame from a good framer.
Okay.
I don't think if you were using the kind that are the metal and then you have that little L shaped piece of metal, I would
Right.
make sure it can take the weight.
Gotcha.
Depending
Yeah.
on
'cause some of those
what it
things
is you're
flimsy.
putting together.
Yeah.
Because I don't always want to talk like everything's lightweight. Once you start getting bigger, things can start getting heavier, especially
Right.
your glass.
Right, especially the glass.
And sometimes when things are large, people will use acrylic
Yep.
acrylic version of glass. You have to be careful with acrylic. I've never used it. Look it up. But what I've heard from people who have written about using acrylic, you do have to be careful because of the, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but the electricity.
Yeah, Richard Suckling talked about
That's
that
it.
today.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah, he said it will literally rip the pastel off the paper, so he puts it a certain distance from the paper to where the charge can't pull it off
So
the
he
paper. Yeah,
probably uses the spacers then.
yeah, he didn't,
Yeah,
I don't
uses
remember because I was
spacers.
driving exactly how he does it, but he talked
Yeah.
about that because
Yeah.
somebody asked him.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I didn't think to have, I don't have any spacers right within reaching distance, so I can't show you a spacer. But that is the alternative to using the Passe-Partout style method, is to have a spacer. And a spacer works out great.
Yeah.
You can buy them in bulk. I'll put that information in, I think I might have done something in one of the, well, that could have been a class. I don't know if I did it in Open Studio. But that's definitely worth doing so that your pastel, especially the larger ones, or like the ones that have multimedia on it, that
Mhm.
you're keeping the glass away from the pastel. Because you think of it, let's say, okay, that's an 8x10.
Yeah.
Okay, if I was dealing with an 18x24, okay, that's a lot of pressure on there for me to make sure that it's lined up, it's straight, because notice I just dropped the glass right on.
Right.
Literally dropped it. I lowered it. But the reality of it is,
Yeah.
the bigger the glass,
Right.
the less wiggle room you have for, there's that
Yeah.
error of the chances of an error are greater with the
Right.
larger one. Start with
So-
smaller ones and get a handle on it, and then,
Yeah.
get
So
your.
logistically, 9x9x11s or something like that, just a series of those. Yeah, I could do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That's fine. I've done this up to a size 12x16.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. And my guess is I could go larger too. It's just I've not really done too many of them larger where I've used this method,
Yeah.
because the glass and trying to maneuver it and all that. It's just easier to use the spacers and a little bit more. I know the luck of it.
Yes,
It's easier with
really.
that.
Thank
Any
you
other
so much.
questions? Yeah, good. Anyone else?
I have a question for Lisa or Karen. How do you blur the background?
Oh. Well,
Sin, if you go up to the Zoom, I happen to be on a computer, so it's easier. There's a preferences command under Zoom, and then it lists like a dozen things you control, and one of them is called background and effects. So I chose blur. If I choose none, see what happens. And then you can choose different backgrounds that are like canned, and you can also load your own. But I chose blur. What kind of device are you on? A phone
I'm
or
on
an
a
iPad?
laptop.
Okay,
I'm on-
so you know how when the application opens, you have a menu bar at the top, like Zoom US, meeting view, edit window help, just depends on what version you're on. Go up to Zoom US and hold your mouse and you'll see a menu drop down, and one of the choices is preferences. Okay, and then when you choose that, you will see a whole list of things you can control, and one of them is background and effects.
Are you on a PC or a Mac?
I'm on a Mac. I haven't even
no,
a Mac, but it would be,
But
yeah, it'd be the same for PC. Well, okay, yeah. So what you could do is Google PC, Zoom, background and effects, and maybe there's a different way to get it, but that's where you want to be to control that. Yeah. It's very helpful.
Yeah,
No
we've
one's
been
seeing
really
what's going
helpful
on.
for me with, that would have looked quite pretty in the background, wouldn't it?
I like your background. I like your background.
Anyway. Okay, so let's see, news coming up. There's a couple of great shows. The Katuitt Center for the Arts has their Mutual Muses, which is the connection of poets with artists. So that's definitely worth getting to. That's great. That's up for about a month in Katuitt. The signature members of the Pastel Painters are going to be at the South Shore Art Center, and that is being hung soon. The opening is next week, and that again is up for a month. And there's various shows around. I think I'm back in full stream to do this first Thursday of the month for the open studios. Occasionally I have to cancel it because I've got other plans or something. And then the pop-up, the next pop-up is, oh, the calendar's under here, is Thursday the 21st. And you'll be getting an email about that and how to sign up if you're interested in taking that little 2-hour workshop with me.
Betsy, you might not be in the show this year, so that's why you didn't mention it, but in the town of Harvard, not the university.
Oh, no, yeah.
Five Sparks. There's a beautiful building in the center of Harvard, and there's a pastel show right now through the Central Mass Pastel Society. So that's up, and it's in the cute little building. It's free. It's a beautiful building, not cute. It's very beautiful.
It is nice, yeah.
That show is current.
That's current, yeah. I didn't mention the different shows. I'm in one in Connecticut, the one in Central Mass, and then there's the show that's in Maine. So, you know, there's a lot of them that happen right around this time of year. So worth getting to if you're in any of those areas. Clearly, Harvard Mass is the closest. Okay.
Hey,
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. If you've got questions, you can give me a
Thank you, Betsy.
shout out, and you're going to get a recording as soon as it's processed, probably the beginning of next week. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.